Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining me again on my channel dedicated to sonnets. And for this episode in February, we are going to be talking about love. We'll also look at a foremost African American practitioner of the sonnet form. This poem by Alice Dunbar-Nelson is a key part of the Harlem Renaissance and a key way to take this tradition of the sonnet and all its baggage and make it again and make it talk about things and explain things surprising, new, and fresh, which ultimately every sonnet must do. Otherwise, we would just read the ones we already had. But to see it done with such genius and such vigor is very, very, very surprising. This poem here is Violets. Let's dig in. I had not thought of violets late, the wild, shy kind that spring beneath your feet in wistful April days, when lovers mate and wander through the fields in raptures sweet. The thought of violets meant florists' shops, and bows and pins and perfumed papers fine, and garish lights and mincing little fops and cabarets and soaps and deadening wines. So far from sweet real things my thoughts had strayed, I had forgot wide fields and clear brown streams, the perfect loveliness that God has made, wild violets shy and heaven mounting dreams. And now, unwittingly, you've made me dream of violets and my soul's forgotten gleam. Now, there's so many different ways to talk about a poem, and there's no real wrong way. But as we delve into this piece, we're going to turn again to a topic we discussed a little bit in our last episode, and that is the volta, which is the turn. Now, this poem, to my ear, has more than one turn, and is complex for that reason, but it still does have a very clear, proper volta. If you remember from last episode, we talked about dividing a sonnet into the first 8 lines and then the last 6. The 8 being the octave and the 6 being the sestet. Now in this instance, we have this octave, the way it strikes me, already has a type of turn occurring in it. A pivot in and of itself between the first 4 lines and the second, but not as big a turn as then we have in the volta at the end of the octave. Let's look at what I'm talking about. The poem opens with this kind of disarming, I had not thought of violets late, trying to essentially lure the reader into, okay, this is going to be a quiet type of poem, perhaps a quiet admission of something startling about or interesting about violets. But the amplitude builds in the next line with the wild, shy kind that spring beneath your feet in wistful April days. We have that enjambment, meaning the second line ends with feet, but we don't necessarily need to pause and catch our breath there because the grammatical unit, the sentence hasn't ended, and the phrase continues below. Because of that enjambment, the poem appears to pick up speed and force as it goes into that fourth part, the fourth line of the opening octave. Now, I kind of hear, after those first four lines, a pivot. We're turning a little bit. The thought of violets meant florists' shops. Well, we're no longer in this kind of Edenic scene, this paradise where she's wandering in this kind of unrecoverable natural world, perhaps depicting a speaker who left the country to move to a city, to move to Harlem and participate in urban life. To get away, perhaps, from some of the limitations of country life, but then ends up missing some of these things. And what is it that she finds difficult or oppressive about the Harlem, the urban life? Well, we get that artificialness of things, how there's this requirement to cover things, to get dressed up. And then by the end, things are very severe. The garish adjective, the mincing adjective, the deadening is very severe. There strikes me as a great finality, to use that adjective, the deadening lines. And I hear a sense of blues, of sadness, of dejection, of heartbreak, of hopelessness, beautifully conveyed at the end of the octave. And that's a pretty big pivot from the first four lines to the second. So as a reader, then, we have a little bit of a conundrum. How is she going to pivot and make a true sonnet volta that's satisfying and realizes a big enough difference between those first 8 and the final 6? And we're going to see what she does in order to achieve this turn. And in my opinion, why this poem is so successful is because it takes a classic sonnet strategy and reinvents it. And when we go back in time and we look at some of the Romantic tradition, Edwardian tradition, we will find out what she's doing here in greater depth. But she gives us a lot to work with. It's quite impressive. This is a turn to the eternal. It harkens back to the first 4 lines, but it has a different perspective than the first 4. The first 4 are a little innocent and are nostalgic, while these final 6 here are contemplating things beyond nostalgia, things about her relationship to God and the beloved. She says, the perfect loveliness that God has made, wild violets shy in heaven mounting dreams. I'm not exactly sure what a heaven mounting dream is, or if I myself have had one, but by the time I reach that place in the poem, I'm ready to be convinced that she knows what that is. And the reason why it's so convincing is because she's painting so successfully. I had forgotten wide fields and clear brown streams. So the wild violets there, it just echoes back, harkens back to the wild, shy kind in the second line. But now it's a different perspective on them. It's a reflection of not just yearning or nostalgia or wistfulness, but a more intensified emotion, a more kind of cosmic yearning. And why? Why has this happened? Well, she gives us that at the end. And now, unwittingly, you've made me dream of violets. You've made me dream of violets and my soul's forgotten gleam. There's this ambiguity, just beautiful ambiguity here in this ending between whether the you is a kind of a Jesus or God, or whether it's a lover, but it's some type of loving and yearning and wanting that is beyond herself and beyond any type of kind of holding down and simplifying. And the violet becomes this just the color of it and the specificness of it, how everybody has seen and breathed the violet, seems to just permeate by the end of this poem. You're surrounded by that smell as you exit that the last couplet of Dream and Gleam. So quite an achievement. Again, just an introduction to some of the techniques she's employed here to realize this poem. And again, my discussion is just a starting point for you in your own exploration of this poem and some of the other things you could think about, how it could tie into Black history, African American culture, how it could tie into jazz, how it could tie into so many different parts of art and philosophy, of what it means to be a woman or what it means to be an American, or what it means to be a religious person or means to be in love. The poem has a lot to offer us and a lot of entry points into these questions that everybody is going to read in their own way. I would love to hear what the poem means to you and why you think you find it beautiful, and I'd love to hear your comments about that below. I'd also like to hear your suggestions of where we could go next and some other sonnets that we could cover. So if you have some suggestions, this is a sonnet you like and that you want to hear about and you want to discuss, please do comment below, and I would really appreciate it if you subscribed and join me again. That would mean a tremendous amount to me. All right, have a wonderful February, everyone, and we'll see you soon. Thanks again.